Any questions from the audience? Well, then let's use our app because it works pretty well. Like I said, there's a number of questions already submitted for the panelists. For any of you to answer this question here, it's the one that's got the most likes. How have you seen the leadership programs impact retention rates within your organizations? And also, how many participants per class?
I think for us, it's from a retention standpoint, we are seeing our numbers grow, and obviously for the fact that we're willing to put time in and develop our individuals, they have a little bit sense of belonging, and the fact that they understand that we're willing to, put the time into them from, not just a retention, but also from a recruitment standpoint. We're seeing that it's easier to recruit people. We have a lot of folks that are young, and so they're used to kind of also that degree type program, and it's a checks and balance, and these are the things that you can do in order to move your career along, as well as those individuals that have been here for a long period of time. There's advancement opportunities. So from that standpoint, I think there's a large retention for us, as well as the fact that we're looking at individuals that are maybe an engineer right now, and is there an opportunity for them to be in line leadership? So it's not in the past where we may have just said, hey, we'll throw you in it, we'll give you a shot, and let you try it to see if it's something you like. Now they know that there's an actual syllabus and a coursework to make sure that they're successful.
Excellent. Anybody else to add to that? Thank you very much. That was a phenomenal response. Any follow-up from the audience with regards to the question or the answer or the discussion going? A finance question for the panel here. The audience, a number of those in the audience have some question around return on investment. How do we show upper management the return on investment of training?
Well, that's probably a struggle in any training, whether it's leadership training. The AMT program obviously costs significant money because you're paying the students while they work for you to get them through this program. Anytime you're talking thousands of dollars, it's pretty easy to equate. All right, we're training our workforce in a way that helps us with our critical thinking, with the problem solving, being able to solve those problems quicker. We're also obviously going to be more productive. Downtime's going to be less, and that 9 times out of 10 is going to cover the cost of any program that you implement.
I think for us, it's definitely some of those classes that we teach that can ensure, from a production standpoint, we are making better choices, and whether it's that optimization or observation classes that we're out there finding waste. So that's a bottom line, easy way to see, hey, they've been trained on this and they're making a difference. So that would probably be that, as well as the fact of our succession planning, making sure that we have ready now candidates. So it's not necessarily a dollar attached to it, but it's, hey, we've got many more ready now candidates, and so we're not spending the time and the money out there trying to recruit these individuals.
Yeah, we're trying to compress our cycle time with respect to our qualification certification. So by having pipeline employees that have a step up, if you will, and they can accelerate more quickly through that, we don't have to spend as much dollars on the training that's in the units, and they can get to work more quickly. We also cover overtime when we don't have that trained resource, so that's another way to offset some of the costs by getting folks up to speed faster.
Excellent response. Thank you, panel. As I mentioned in my opening comments, the TSMA organization is made up of organizations that are rather large, some medium-sized companies, but a lot of small companies here in the tri-state area in southwestern Indiana. A question regarding, for the small businesses, how do you think a small business could do something similar with the limited resources as compared to some of the things that the bigger companies are doing? Do you have any thoughts, any ideas to help those that are leading the small companies to try to do similar things with the limited resources that might be available in smaller companies?
So I think the alliance structure that we've tried to start, with respect to the chemical companies, I mean, we looked around, what are the like industries that are going to have the same kind of issues we have. So even if you're a small company, there's probably folks out there that you could work with in your sphere of work that would allow you to pool resources. I mean, we contributed to the alliance financially, but also we have really got financial support from several of the other partners and people support. So we have resources that sit on the board. So I think it's looking around and saying, what do you need? Is there something specific for your area and pooling those resources? I mean, you can't do it on your own.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I think that's excellent advice for those operating smaller sized companies with limited resources. Thank you, Scott. Question for the millennials. I mean, obviously a lot of millennials, and we're doing a lot of things with regards to trying to attract millennials, but from your perspective, in terms of the things that you're doing within your organizations, how do we get millennials excited about the respective programs that you're offering?
Well, I think I get this question asked a lot. It's more of how are you going to convince a millennial to come into your program or to come work in a manufacturing environment. And I don't think it's so much that we convince them. We just properly educate them on what these careers are, the career opportunities once they get through a program where they can get their foot in the door into one of these companies, and the career opportunities that can happen after that. I share a lot of my past experience. I've had a lot of different roles in my career in manufacturing. So I think sharing those opportunities, sharing more broad-based education about what these careers are, and what we found is that we don't have to go make something pizzazz or anything like that. They're finding that they have that interest in those careers once they understand what they are. They've been told that they're horrible jobs, that they're dirty environments, that they're, you're going to go into a dead-end manufacturing job. Once we go in and show them that that's not the case, we don't really have to get them excited. They're getting excited themselves.
We also are going after the parents. Right now, the parents are important, because even the millennials are asking for advice. I have a millennial that wants to find value in the workplace. They want to be, really seen as contributors, and so I think that's part of what we can share. Look, you can contribute, in a large way to these jobs that we're looking to fill. But the parents are important. I mean, we're still giving advice to 25 and 28-year-olds, and I'm sure that'll continue. But that's, they're looking for that.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Thank you very much for that response. On the flip side of things, for those that are maybe a little bit gray-haired and have got some years of experience, how do we go about recruiting those internal experts, those people that do have the years of experience? What is your strategy for recruiting these internal experts to train? We have a lot of knowledge, but finding and prioritizing the time to train is difficult for many. And also, do you have any advice for how you might go about having mentoring programs?
So after folks would go through the certificate program we talked about, we have a 12-week apprenticeship program inside of Sabic, and to recruit, obviously we have engineers and leaders that we recruit from our own team, and they see the importance of it. I mean, they build their own program, the material, they prepare, and they come and share that with these new recruits. So I think they're recognizing the need. We have to do it, and they're getting the support from their leadership to take that time, because it isn't small. You're asking them to come week after week, or depending on how long the course is, to support that. So I think it's an awareness of the overall goal that we need to support.
I would just piggyback that, as I mentioned before, that was the key to our success with Alcoa University, is making sure that we had that buy-in from the leaders, making sure that they understand that this wasn't just, hey, we want to make sure that people feel like they're being developed, that it was a true understanding of our future success is based on these people being leaders and being able to understand the business processes and make those business decisions. So by getting that buy-in, it not only helps them feel a sense of pride in developing those new leaders, but it gives those new individuals, the leaders, an opportunity to see what's important and to buy into the business themselves.
Well, that's excellent. Thank you very much for that response. Let me turn it back out to the audience again, just to see if there's anybody out there that's thought of a question or get some real-time engagement here with anybody from the audience. Aha.
Do you pull people in from the production area as your subject matter experts as well? Or do you mainly just go for like the exempt or management engineers, those kinds?
So at this point for Alcoa University, personally, we have just pulled in the leadership piece. Now there are some from a technical standpoint, yes, we will pull in those because they're the ones in the trenches every day that have their hands on the equipment, or at least are guiding those that have the hands on the equipment. So there are a handful of those, but as I mentioned before, this is just our first stage. We hope to continue to add that, where we will pull in from the technical field, and once we add that school, then more people that are in that realm every day.
Question? Mike?
Yeah. So we've heard about some of the training programs, and they sound fantastic. They really do. Great, top notch. But to ask a little bit of a question about some of the content of the classes, how great of a role does ergonomics play in the instruction? Because we know if you teach someone how to use their workspace and how to set the workspace up, they can come to work and not be hurt, and not be comfortable, and then they want to come back to work the next day. So we get in front of them early, and that's the key. How much of a role does ergonomics play in this training?
Excellent question.
Yeah, so for our students, that even though they're coming into a technical program, they go through work conditioning just like any other production team member. The fundamental skills training isn't, it's to ramp them up in a process, but they're also teaching them the proper ways to do that. You don't squeeze the handle of this tool as hard as you can every time you're using it, because you're going to wear out your hand by doing that. So we're teaching them ergonomics by teaching them the core fundamentals of how to build those processes. As well as in that first semester, we teach them safety culture. So it's not just about safety policies and certain procedures, as much as just having that total awareness and developing a safety culture both inside the workplace and outside the workplace.
And we're similar to what Chris talked about. We have on-site industrial hygienists. She comes in and does a whole section on ergonomics, and we have ergo events that they can participate in. We certainly have, a full EHS, environmental health and safety staff that takes, I think it's like 30 hours or more of just, safety training just in the first couple of weeks. So it's certainly very important for us, but ergonomics is one of those components.
Excellent. Thank you for that response.
Got one over here.
I'm just curious, to enroll in the one-year program, start at the time and chat your requirements, high school diploma or a GED?
Yes, I mean, I should pass it over to Dennis Lichty because he's the industrial chair. But yeah, I think you have to have certain, I don't know in terms of your high school degree, but I don't know if you have to have a GPA or anything, Dennis, to get into the technology program here. But I'm not an expert, but we're looking for people who want to go into manufacturing and desire to do that. I think a lot of the folks who are enrolling in those, hey, they're already setting, they want a career. They're trying to make a path for themselves. So we're hoping to intercept some of them and put them into the process operations technical certificate program. I don't really know the entry requirements, but maybe you can catch up with Dennis afterwards.
Okay, another question from Sligo here. On the dollars and cents, the audience is curious with regards to, at least within your organizations, what is your annual budget for training per employee? what's it going to cost us? What's a realistic and number, you know, that we ought to be thinking about in terms of investment in our employees' training?
I don't know that any of us have an actual dollar amount. You know, for us, I wouldn't say that especially from an Alcoa University standpoint, there's not necessarily much of a dollar amount associated with the project at this point, other than time. Making sure we allow for time for folks to be off the floor, to participate in the classes, and the time that those supervisors and managers need in order to put the training together to make sure it's valuable. So I don't know that I have an answer as far as a specific dollar amount per employee. What if you guys have a better answer? You got nothing.
We have to do.
Good luck.
Whatever it takes. No, thank you very much. A little bit of a different kind of a question coming from the audience with a number of resources that have an interest in this area, specifically around traditionally overlooked workers. PWDs or convicts, as an example, you know, that potentially could fill some of the hiring gap. How do you reconcile, you know, this type of resource with your performance standards and your company culture? Any comments from the panel with regards to that interesting question?
Next question, please.
We're not HR.
It's a huge workforce, and if we don't start hiring them, we just keep that perpetual motion going where they just end up having to go back to jail because they go to crime, because they can't get a job.
So ours is case by case. I mean, a legal department within our organization is going to review that to determine whether we can hire that person or not. It's not an automatic, you can't apply.
Okay, thank you. What's your greatest barrier to implementing a new training program? Is it expense, time, coverage, access, retention risks, or anything else that you can think of in terms of barriers to implementing a new training program?
For us, it's resources on the floor as well, because you have to have those resources to train the people, and while they're leaving at the same time, that gets very difficult. Maybe the mentor that had one of our AMT students last year, you know, they retired, so now that mentor isn't there. We're trying to train a new mentor, you know, that kind of thing. So it's resources on the floor to train the number of people that we're trying to train is probably one of our biggest barriers.
I would agree with that. Resources and time. Obviously, as I said before, it's just finding that time and making sure that people really understand the importance and that our business will be more successful if we put time into our people to work it.
Another question with regards to training here. What influences your decision regarding outsourcing the training provider or the training versus training in-house? How do you evaluate training vendors' efficiency for the workforce?
And so from, an Alcoa University standpoint, we realized we had the resources in-house. We had some of those subject matter experts. Is that me? So not only do we have the resources in-house, but it also, as I mentioned, kind of helped develop some of those professors and deans. But that's not to say that we're subject matter experts on everything. So we often look into surveys with our folks to see what trainings are out there that are needed, and if it's not something that we can necessarily provide, or if it's a time commitment that we may not have at that given moment, then by all means we're willing to look outside to see what kind of resources are available to bring somebody in.
I'd have to say it's about the same for us. We look at what the subject is, and do we have a subject matter expert already in the facility that can teach that, and if not, we would look for an external source.
Very similar at Sabic. We did go out and take a look at some external vendor with respect to some online learning, and we integrated that into our apprenticeship program. So it's an extension or expansion of what we can do without necessarily having to have that instructor. And there's like 2,200 courses that are available, and We assign those throughout the apprenticeship, so we do rely on that sort of outside resource. We pay a licensing fee per person for that.
Okay, excellent. Very much appreciate that insight. A couple more questions before we take a little bit of a break and get ready for our tour here of Ivy Tech. Another question here that was submitted through Slido. Do you identify high potential employees? And specifically, do you have a specific training track for these type of resources?
So we certainly do on the exempt side. One of the teams was talking about succession planning, and we're looking at expanding our succession planning out of the exempt ranks to the top technician ranks as well, which would give us some insight into who's going to be the next resource leader, which is one of our top technician levels on the site. So we've got some work to do there, but we certainly do it on the exempt side.
And we're the same way, as we mentioned before, for Alcoa University. It wasn't just that second tier leadership, it was determining who some of that emerging talent was, making sure that we're putting them on some type of a track as well. So even though we talk about Alcoa University today, there's many other training programs, and that we're looking at those other individual contributors to make sure that we're providing them with development opportunities as well, beyond Alcoa University.
Okay. I think I'm going to have time for one more question, possibly another one. And again, I apologize for all the ones that we haven't gotten to. Like I said, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the participation. This tool's actually worked quite well. Folks, have you ever tried a lunch and learn program as part of your training program within your organizations? And if so, what has worked well, and maybe what has worked not so well?
What works well is if you provide the lunch. It's amazing the turnout that you can have versus them bringing their own. So we do one at Alcoa, and it's typically where we have a lot of our leaders come and talk about their career paths. So there's so many times, I think you mentioned it, or one of you mentioned, giving them the opportunity to see what careers are even out there. So we have individuals that may have started as an engineer and they've taken a completely different path, and now they're in a different path. And so just sitting and having an opportunity to listen, to say, you know, I'm not necessarily stuck on this where I have to go next. There's opportunities out there, and just understanding the different career possibilities. So it's worked for us at this point, and we haven't reached out to externals a lot, but that's definitely something I think that we will consider in the future.
Very similar for us at Toyota. We have lunch and learns with team members, and sometimes we do it at different levels. So team members and team leaders, group leaders, assistant managers, specialists, so forth, so that they can talk about commonized topics as well.
We have roundtables as well as lunch and learn situations where we have access through Sabic to some webinar type programs that we can share. You know, it's not necessarily TED Talks, but similar. And we access those, and then we have a conversation around what that content was about.
Okay, excellent. I'd like to thank the panel again for your contributions, all the ideas and nuggets. I certainly have taken a bunch of nuggets away myself for my own organization. So a round of applause for the panel, please.